couple of big games on both the college front and the pro front here in Cincinnati. And the man who has both of those covered for you each and every single Saturday, Sunday, and or in this case Monday, sometimes Thursday, sometimes next Friday when UC plays. And that would be our good buddy, the voice of the Bearcats, the voice of the Bengals, Dan Hoard. Daniel, good Friday morning to you, sir. How are you?
I'm great, Tom. How are you?
I'm doing well. You're on your way down to Central Florida, UCF. That is in Orlando, correct?
Indeed, it is.
Are you surprised the Bearcats are an underdog in this game, Dan, when you look at what they've done in the conference and when you look at UCF just getting bludgeoned last week by East Carolina? Are you surprised?
Maybe a little bit, but not much. I think UCF is good. I was surprised that they played as lousy as they did last week against East Carolina. ECU isn't terrible, good quarterback, good running back, and they played a great game. But I think UCF is probably the second best team in the league. I know the record doesn't show it. Tulane's in the top 25. UCF didn't play well last week. But in terms of their talent and their quarterback in particular, I still regard them as the second best team to Cincinnati.
Okay, talk about the Bearcats. The homecoming game against South Florida, they were just okay, but they found a way to win. Last week, the game at SMU, again, they were just okay, but they found a way to win. What's your feel, Danny? I was with Urban Meyer the other night, and his son, Nate, who is working as a grad assistant kind of like guy on that staff, and we were talking about UC, and he pointed out to me, he said, I think a lot of people forget that there are so many guys that are playing for the first time this year on this UC team, and they're only 7 games into, in many cases, not just this year, but 7 games into their quote-unquote careers with UC. And so there's still a lot of learning going on and getting consistency. Is that a fair point?
It's totally a fair point. I think Justin Williams wrote a great story earlier this week for The Athletic, basically talking about how unrealistic our expectations are for this team. Not that I thought that their record would be worse, but people are so seemingly bent out of shape when they don't win by 3 touchdowns. They lost 9 NFL draft picks. They lost a quarterback who was 44-6. The last 4 years. They lost the number 4 pick in the NFL draft, who might be the NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year. He probably would be if the season ended today. Cincinnati has never lost talent like they lost this past year, and yet people, not everybody, but a lot of people seem to think that there shouldn't have been a drop-off at all. I think the fact that they are 6-1 with a 6-game winning streak is a heck of an accomplishment, and if they can win tomorrow in Orlando, I don't think it's out of the question to think that they can run the table and go back to a New Year's Six bowl.
When you look at the team for this coming week, and for fans that maybe don't pay a whole lot of attention to Central Florida, what is it when you're looking at this game, preparing for this game? What are a couple of things that you could share with some of us about what we might want to look for that could determine the outcome of the game?
Well, let's start with UCF's quarterback, John Rice Plumlee. The name will be familiar to big SEC fans because back in 2019, he's a transfer from Ole Miss. Back in 2019, he was the backup to Matt Corral as a true freshman. Corral got hurt. John Rice Plumlee started for most of the season that year as a true freshman for Ole Miss. He ran for more than 1,000 yards. He's a quarterback who has 4.3 speed. He's 4th in the American Athletic Conference in rushing. He is a legitimate threat as a runner. He's okay as a passer, but he is great as a runner. Back in 2019, that was Joe Burrow's national championship season at LSU, the 15-0 year, 60 touchdown passes, et cetera, et cetera. They played Ole Miss that year. Joe Burrow threw for like 470 yards and 5 touchdowns, a typical game for him that year. This guy, John Rice Plumlee, ran for 221 yards and 4 touchdowns against that LSU national championship defense that day. So that's the number one thing to be looking out for tomorrow.
What else? What about UC on offense? What about UCF on defense?
So UCF is number one in the league in points scored and number one in the league in fewest points allowed. Now, they gave up some points last week against East Carolina. I do think the quarterback, Holton Ahlers for ECU, is really good. He's been there forever. Keaton Mitchell is probably the best running back in the league. So they've got really good players at those two positions. But that's the first time in ages that UCF has given up more than 20 points in a game. It's exactly what you would expect it to be, a really fast, athletic defense. Most of those players are coming from Florida, South Florida in particular. They always recruit well, and that's what they have on defense. So I don't think Cincinnati is going to have a speed advantage, certainly on either side of the ball. But I do think, the Bearcats obviously have plenty of skill position talent on offense to be able to put some points on the board if they execute well.
Okay, shift gears now to the pro front. The big news, of course, it's all everybody's talking about. If you're a sports fan here in greater Cincinnati, for that matter, all around the entire NFL. What are the Bengals without Jamar Chase? Not going to ask you to speculate because, nobody knows how long this is going to take before you get him back. But what are your thoughts about the Cincinnati Bengals offense without Jamar Chase?
He's their best offensive weapon, excluding the quarterback, so that's a huge loss. But I've been meaning to do this at some point today, and I will. I'm going to take a look at every NFL roster and determine how Cincinnati's wide receiver core minus Jamar Chase matches up against everybody else. And I'm thinking it's still going to be top half in the league, just with T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, and whoever else you stick in there, whether it's Mike Thomas, Trent Taylor, Trenton Irwin, who's likely to come up from the practice squad, whoever that third guy turns out to be. Higgins is a number one wide receiver on virtually every NFL roster. Tyler Boyd is probably one of the top three slot receivers in the NFL. They're still very good at that position, but it's impossible to replace the timing and chemistry that Joe Burrow has with Jamar Chase.
Cleveland. I sit here and argue with these two clowns, Casey and Paul, because, they're on this whole mantra, Brown stink, Brown stink. You want to go ahead and say it for him?
Oh, Dan, you and I know each other pretty well. You know me. You know that I'm going to give a take and I'm going to stand by it. Browns stink, Dan. Come on.
The Browns stink.
I say, Dan, they don't stink. I say the Bengals, and it was pointed out earlier by James Rapien, theoretically, if the Bengals lost a game, and I'm not suggesting they are, but if they lost the game by 3 points or fewer this week, they would have 4 losses by a combined 11 points. We don't think they stink. The Browns have 4 of their 5 losses this year by a combined 11 points. Why do they stink? So say these guys. What do you think about the Cleveland Browns?
I don't think they stink, but I think the Bengals should be able to beat them right now, considering that Jacoby Brissett is the quarterback, and they've got legitimate injury problems. We're all obsessed right now with Jamar Chase, and rightfully so, but the Browns have issues too. David Njoku, their great tight end who's been playing awesome this year, is out. I think Wyatt Teller's going to be out. Anthony Walker, one of their best linebackers, went on IR for the season earlier this year. Their leading tackler, Jacob Phillips, went on IR earlier this week. So they've got some issues, and Jacoby Brissett is just a guy. And for these 11 games, while he's going to be their starting quarterback, he's not going to win them games. His job is not to lose games, and he has thrown some costly fourth-quarter interceptions. So I think the formula is pretty simple. You got to prevent Nick Chubb from going off. And unfortunately, he has gone off in the past against Cincinnati. He's averaging 95 rushing yards head-to-head against the Bengals in his career. I guess I could live with 95 on Monday night, but you can't live with like 130 plus.
Yeah. Okay. Dan, safe travels. You're on that fancy charter again. Hey, I'm curious. Are you double dipping on charters this weekend? I just got to thinking about that for a minute. Maybe you don't make it back. Well, of course you would make it back Saturday night. So you will be on charter flight. This is the kind of stuff that only George Clooney gets to do,
Yeah.
right? So, I mean, we were just talking about who's cool or not cool or trying to be cool. Dan Hoard is now, without a doubt, we knew he was cool, but now he's on a charter Friday, he's on a charter Saturday, he's on a charter Sunday, and he's on a charter late Monday night. Dan, does it get any better than that?
Well, it wouldn't get any better than that, but that's not the case this week.
Oh.
And this is better than that. I'm going to trust that my lovely mom, Diane, is not watching this show. And anybody
That's
viewing,
probably a safe bet.
probably a safe bet. Anybody watching cannot share this on
Okay.
Facebook. My mom's
All
on
right.
Facebook, so don't tell her. My
Okay.
mom turned 85 earlier this week.
Wow.
She lives in Lakewood, New York, which is in the southwest tip of New York State. It's only about 2.5 hours from Cleveland. So I will travel to travel to Orlando with UC later today. I will come back with the team after the game on Saturday. On Sunday morning, I'm going to rent a car and drive home to surprise my mom for her 85th birthday, which is going to be awesome. And then early Monday morning, I'll drive to Cleveland. I'll drop off the car, and then I will travel back with the team after the game. So I get to see my mom on Sunday, which is going to be tremendous.
Dude, I mean, that is absolutely awesome. It's all happy birthday to your mom.
Thank you.
Please give her a hug and a kiss from us. You're so lucky to have your mom still with you and with us. And so, my friend, enjoy a great. That is our cherry on top today, officially brought to you by UDF. Is Dan is going to see his mom for her birthday, or to celebrate her birthday.
Correct. And it'll be a surprise, which is going to be
Yes.
great. My oldest sister lives close to where I grew up, so she will be there. My next oldest sister is making the trip from Indianapolis, so she will be there.
Wow.
My brother who lives in South Carolina can't be there, but my youngest sister lives close to home. So 4 of the 5 kids will be there. It'll be great.
Amen. Happy birthday. Safe travels, my friend. Godspeed ahead.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
All righty. Dan Hoard. Boy, that is a great story. Anybody who's ever lost their mom, I lost my mom a long time ago. And man, when I hear stories like that, that is great stuff.